Feel free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you to fit their mold. I think it's time for a change. This is what I say. Feel free to be.
What's going on, everybody? Yay. What do you know? It's episode 30 of the Two Tone Talk podcast. 30 of these already? Man, time flies when you're having fun. It is episode 30 of the Two Tone Talk podcast. Thank you all for joining me, and I do want to say, I apologize in advance if you hear a fan going in the background, because my ceiling fan's on full blast, because we're having some AC issues at Two Tone Talk Studios here today. So, just want to apologize in advance for that. But, welcome to the Two Tone Talk podcast. I'm your host, Brad Steele, talking all things Tennessee Titans. Football is back, everybody. Football is back. Even though it's preseason, even though it's, what some would say meaningless football games, there's no such thing as meaningless football. It is live football action. We watched it week 1 this past weekend. We're getting ready for week 2 of preseason football. And boy, oh boy, did the Titans play the other day against the Chicago Bears. Bears, we're going to talk about what's going on with that. Malik Willis, Will Levis, and all of the other stuff in between. I do want to say this podcast is available on Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere you get your podcast, and YouTube. Please go subscribe, if you haven't already, to Two Tone Talk on YouTube. There's a lot of cool stuff on there, and I would appreciate you. I'm verging on 400, I believe, subscribers to Two Tone Talk on YouTube. Would love to have you over there. And go follow me on, is it Twitter, X, whatever you call it. Go follow me over there at Two Tone Talk. Live tweeting the games, all of that fun stuff. So, speaking of the games, let's talk about the game that happened in Chicago, Illinois, this past Saturday between the Titans and the Bears in the backup QB battle that we all have anticipated between Malik Willis and Will Levis. And let's call it what it is. It is a battle to be the backup QB. I don't know if you guys have been reading the tweets coming out of Titans practice today, but Ryan Tannehill looking pretty sharp, looking pretty good, according to Paul Kaharski and some others who are saying Ryan Tannehill is looking pretty good, looking very good in practice. And so what I want to say is this about Mr. Tannehill. We all, I believe, including me, we probably owe Ryan Tannehill a little bit of an apology. Because, I came on this podcast at the end of last season and I said it's time to move on. He ain't the biggest problem we had last year, but it was like, you get to the end of a season and you feel like, we could make a run at Lamar Jackson. We could do all this stuff. But when the dust settles, as things are right now, we probably need to be a little bit grateful to have Ryan Tannehill, because Malik Willis, let's talk about it. Malik Willis is much improved. We saw it Saturday. He's much improved. We had heard the reports coming out of camp. Malik Willis is looking better. Looking like he's really put the work in, and he's better than he was. He's made strides. And I think on Saturday he proved that those reports were indeed true. He is better. He's gotten better. Looks like he has more poise. Looks like he has more command of the offense. Looks like looks like he's in year 2 instead of year 1, right? But to me, I still would not be very confident with Malik Willis as the starter coming in every week to lead this team. I don't think he's ready for that yet. I still don't see a guy who's ready to come in and be the guy, and that's fine. He doesn't have to be. But if you want to be encouraged about where this guy is and where he could potentially be next year and the next year, I don't blame you. I mean, he's gotten better. If he continues to get better, that would be great. But for right now, he ain't even close to being as good as Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill needs to be the starter. But Malik, he looks better. He looks better, but he still is not ready. And then you have Will Levis, the rookie. I thought Will Levis put in a pretty boring performance on Saturday. I thought he put in a pretty boring performance. Malik had some flashy plays here and there. Obviously, first play of the game, the big play to Chris Moore. Will Levis didn't have one of those. Will Levis didn't have, a deep shot down the field. He did have a couple of nice throws, I thought. But, I think Will Levis, he's a rookie. He's got a long way to go. And his pocket presence isn't great. Held on to the ball too long. Now, I'm not going to lie. The offensive line that they had him in there with sucks. But, preseason. Hello. But there were a few times where he actually had enough time to throw. He just held on to the ball too long. And guess what, guys? That's not me saying that the guy's not going to be any good. It's me saying he's a rookie. And this was his first NFL game, his first time ever being on a field, playing against another team in an NFL game, and he held on to the ball too long, and it caused a couple of sacks to happen. It's not the end of the world. It's not me jumping ship on Will Levis, but, he absolutely has some plays. The last play of the game, the interception that he threw, I have no idea who he was throwing to. He's a rookie. Sometimes I feel like we go into stuff like this with unrealistic expectations. We come in expecting both Malik and Will Levis to come out here and both throw for 500 yards and look like they could take the reins right now. I don't think either one of them looked that way. But it's week 1. There's 3 of these preseason games. We have 2 more to go. Let's see how the whole preseason plays out, and then we'll make a decision there. But ain't neither one of them going to be better than Tannehill. Tannehill's absolutely, undoubtedly, not even close the best option to be the starting quarterback for this team come September, next month. That's not even something up for debate, guys. My thing is, I'm rooting for either one of them, Malik or Levis. If you're looking past this season and you want to say, okay, who's going to be the guy once Tannehill leaves, I'm encouraged by what I saw by Malik. I'm not totally discouraged by what I saw from Will Levis because he's a rookie playing in his first NFL game. Anthony Richardson, you see what he did? On his first NFL game, he threw a terrible interception. C.J. Stroud, he looked horrible. But that don't mean he's going to be bad. It just means it was his first NFL game, and he's got to get used to it. He looked horrible. Anthony Richardson looked horrible. But it is what it is. It's why it's preseason football, right? So I'm not jumping ship on Levis. I thought Malik looked better. He's still got some improving to do, obviously. But, there's people on Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it, who are trying to insinuate that, they're getting into these heated debates about Will Levis and Malik Willis and who's better and who's the future and whatever. It's like, guys, just as long as one of them does. Ideally, you would hope that Malik continues to improve and Levis continues to improve, and then you have a quarterback battle next offseason to see who's going to be, get that opportunity to become the franchise guy. And, Malik and Levis both on Saturday looked better than Malik looked at any point last year. Malik looked completely lost when he got in the game last year. Great athlete, And some of that allowed him to make some plays here and there, but overall, he looked completely lost when he got in the game last season. I thought he and Levis both looked better than Malik looked last year, so that's good. But anybody that was going to try to come in and say that one of these two guys needed to be starting over Ryan Tannehill, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Tannehill's the starter this year. It's not even... There's no need to sit here and debate it. But as far as who the backup would be right now, I would lean toward Malik just because he's got a year over Levis. He, looks... And the good news is they've made this new rule where you can have 3 quarterbacks. So it's not looking like the Titans are... I would absolutely think all 3 of them are going to make the main roster. You traded up in the second round to get Will Levis. You cannot put this dude on a practice squad, okay? You've got to... probably take all 3. And kudos to Malik Willis, by the way. I do want to say this. I want to give Malik credit because he was an afterthought. After last season ended and Titans drafted Will Levis, Malik Willis was a complete afterthought. Nobody cared. Everybody just assumed that experiment was over. And he's done, and it's either going to be Tannehill or Levis. People completely disregarded. But kudos to this guy. Because he came in, he got better, he put the work in, and it showed on Saturday. He has improved. He's not Tom Brady, but he has improved. And he has put himself back in the conversation. And so kudos to him. Kudos to him, because he could have just rolled over and played dead. When they drafted Will Levis and the conversation shifted away from him completely, he could have just gave up right then. Shows a lot of character on his part to stay in the game and to come back and say, you're not just going to move on from me. I'm going to make this challenging for you. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to look good. So kudos to him for that. As far as Will Levis, we'll continue to see throughout the preseason. I'm assuming he's going to get more time. But let me say this. I don't like this whole trading off possessions. I don't like that. Where Malik plays a possession and then Levis plays a possession and then Malik gets a possession. I don't like that because I don't think it gives anybody a chance to get in a rhythm. I would much rather see Malik play a half and Levis play a half. Let them both have, or at the very least, let's have Malik play a quarter and then Levis play a quarter and then Malik play. Like, give Malik the first and third quarter, give Levis the second and fourth. Like, at least that, if not giving him a whole half, because I don't like trading off possessions. I think it would be more fair to both guys to give them at least a quarter to themselves, if not an entire half, preferably an entire half. But we'll see more Levis. I thought Levis missed a game-winning touchdown, and I know people don't really care about final scores in the preseason, but I did think, for what it's worth, Levis missed a game-winning touchdown on the next-to-last throw. It was Holmes. Gavin Holmes was running across the field, and, some people would say Holmes should have caught it, and a better receiver would have caught it. I would have to watch it back, but, Levis threw it behind him, and to be fair, it was a tough throw. I mean, he had escaped pressure, rolling to his left, throwing back. It's a tough throw to make for a rookie in his first game. But some people would say Holmes should have caught it anyway. But if he catches it, it's a touchdown. So there's a play that I'm sure Will Levis would love to have back. And then, of course, the interception on the last play. I have no idea what in the world who he was throwing to. Let's talk about Malik Willis' interception, because this play has been a hot topic of debate among Titans fans as well. Was it a bad throw, or was it a dropped pass? Throwing to the tight end, Josh Wiley. The rookie tight end, Josh Wiley. The throw was high. Josh Wiley's a tall guy. And somehow Malik still managed to throw it too high for him. Would a better tight end have caught it? Yeah. This is a rookie tight end in his first NFL game. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, let's not be too critical. I try not to be too critical of rookies in their first preseason game. Would a better tight end have caught it? Maybe. Kind of looked like Wiley just wasn't ready for the ball. it caught him by surprise, but the throw was high too. Malik's got to get that throw. Two things could be true at once. Malik's got to get that throw down, and Wiley could have probably given it a better shot. Josh Wiley had a tough game. He also had a fumble on a third down conversion. I don't want to harp on it too much because he's a rookie in his first game, and it's preseason, and it's, I will say this about the entire game. It was preseason football. I mean, it was week 1 of preseason. I think there was one sequence of events where the Bears muffed a punt, and then on the next play was Malik throwing that interception, and then on the next play, the Bears threw an interception. It was just like, dude, this is preseason football. It is sloppy. It's ugly. It just is what it is. And you got to keep that in mind, too, when you're assessing the play of guys like Malik Willis and Will Levis. They're in there with offensive linemen who are rookies, who are inexperienced. They're in there with receivers who are oftentimes rookies and inexperienced, and tight ends. But I'll tell you one rookie who I thought looked good. The brightest of bright spots for the Titans on Saturday was Tyjae Spears. This guy, he only played one possession, as well as, I will say, I think they had their whole starting offensive line in for the first possession, and they looked good. For one possession. It's hard to gauge it because it's one possession. But for the one possession that the starting O-line was in, they looked good. Skoronski, Dillard, they had to play where the guard pulled out there. The starting 5 looked good when they were in there. And Tyjae Spears looked good too. He had that stiff arm. Looked like a mini Derrick Henry stiff arm. That was good. We have reason to be excited about that guy. And we probably owe the whole organization an apology for how we questioned the drafting of that guy, because we heard about some injuries and stuff like that, but he looked good. And you want to talk about a really good 1-2 punch of Derrick Henry and then Tyjae Spears. I'm very excited about that. I think Hassan Haskins, who did have a touchdown the other day, he may be the odd man out, but and if some of the accusations that have been made toward him by his girlfriend are true, he may really be the odd man out. But Henry and Spears, I'm excited about those two. Spears looked great when he was in there. He was only in there one possession, but he looked great. Malik looked good that possession too. That opening possession, really good. I think that it's still aggravating to me, even though it's a preseason game and ultimately it doesn't matter, but the fact that the Titans once again didn't score a point in the second half of this game. It's like, are you kidding me? Come on. But the offensive line depth is a concern, because when the starting 5 went out and they got some of these other guys in there, man. Pass protection. I said earlier, Will Levis there were times when Levis especially held onto the ball too long, and it allowed for some sacks to happen. But there were some times where it don't matter who you put in there, they're going to get sacked, because there were some guys who looked like they didn't even belong on an NFL roster with the way they were blocking on that backup. Woo! Some of those backup offensive linemen, it was like, bro, you in the NFL, and that's how you gonna block? It was rough. So, and here's the thing. As far as offensive line, you guys know how this goes over the course of a regular season. You're going to have guys get hurt. Hopefully not to the extent that we've seen with the Titans the last couple of years, but you're going to have guys get hurt. Offensive line, you've got to have depth, because you're going to at least have a game or two where your left guard's not able to go, or your right tackle's not able to go. Like, you're going, obviously with first 6 games, our starting right tackle is suspended, right? So we're already in that position. So offensive line, you've got to have depth, and I am concerned, because the Titans' backup offensive line Saturday looked horrible. And I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. If I'm going to give Malik and Levis the benefit of the doubt, I can give some of those guys too. It was week 1 of the preseason. Let's see how it plays out. We got 2 more preseason games to go. But, boy, they got toasted on that backup O-line once they got in there. It was tough. And again, it's hard to assess guys like Will Levis and Malik Willis when they're in there with those kinds of offensive lines. That's tough. And it's what we ran into last year with guys like Dennis Daly. It's like, how can we assess these quarterbacks and stuff when these are the guys blocking for them, right? So, yeah, that was a concern for me, backup O-line. Let's talk about these wide receivers. One guy that stood out to me in particular was Racey McMath. You know, he was a guy who really emerged last training camp, and people were suddenly like, hey, this guy's taking strides going into last season. Then he got hurt. He didn't show up until like the last quarter of the season, really, and really didn't make that much of an impact. Coming in this year, you just weren't seeing very much about him. Like in practice, you weren't seeing, you know, people saying like, hey, Racey McMath, he's looking great. So it was like, hey, is this guy like falling off the face of the earth? Well, he made quite a few catches on Saturday, made some nice plays. Here's my one complaint about Racey McMath. Does anybody else notice this? I feel like Racey McMath never gets any yards after catch. Ever. He catches the ball, falls down. He's falling down while he catches it, or he catches it and hits the ground, or he catches it and runs out of bounds. There was one play in the second half in particular where I thought he could have kept running and maybe even scored, because he was like taking off. He weaved his way through a bunch of Bears guys, and it was like, hey, keep going. And he just ducked out of bounds. It was like, what are you doing? I don't know. Maybe it's just coincidental, but I like, man, I would love to see more yards after catch with this guy. But he made quite a few plays on Saturday, putting his name back in the hat as to make the final 53-man roster. Nick Westbrook-Akine played and didn't really do much. Some people still say Westbrook-Akine is a lock to make the roster, and I feel like that too, unless somebody can just emerge. A couple of guys in practice or something can just emerge as, you know, you have to put him on the roster, right? Reggie Roberson was a guy who was looking good in practice. He had the one catch on the sideline, but otherwise he was quiet. Mason Kinsey, he made a lot of, he was targeted a lot. I think Mason Kinsey is just a practice squad guy. I don't think he's ever going to make the final 53. I think he's just a practice squad guy. I am excited. I like the Kearis Jackson from Georgia. He made a couple of plays there. The Colton Dowell, I don't think he did really anything on Saturday. So we'll see how that continues to play out. There's at least one spot on that starting wide receiver group that's open for business, right? Because we talked about it before. Burks is a lock. D-Hop's a lock. Phillips is a lock. Chris Moore is a lock. Now, Chris Moore is going to have to hold on to the ball because, the first play of the game, I'll give him that. He caught the long ball and then got walloped, but then he dropped the one that should have been a first down. But, first game jitters maybe. But I think those four are a lock. Burks, D-Hop, Phillips, and Chris Moore. And then most people would say Westbrook-Akine is a lock. So that if that's true, that's still going to leave at least one spot open for grabs on that wide receiving group. Most would probably say Racey McMath is the favorite to get that spot just because he's been on the team. He's, been there for a couple of years. He's played in games before. So some people would say that's your most likely outcome, is that you take those six guys, Burks, D-Hop, Phillips, Moore, NWI, and McMath. Most people are going to say that's it. But if some guy, really just shows up and makes it to where they can't turn them down, then, we'll see with the rest of this preseason. But I don't think there was anybody that really just stood out to me at wide receiver on Saturday. I mean, McMath probably the most, but yeah, really nobody stood out to me too much. I mean, you got Julius Chestnut at running back. We saw plenty of him last preseason. We know what you got with him. I mean, Julius Chestnut actually made the roster last year. He made the 53-man roster, but we really didn't see much of him outside of preseason, so he carried the ball a good bit. So offensively, that's just kind of it. There's not much more to say. Josh Wiley, like I said, the tight end that you would hope. He's got good size, he's got good length, but he had a tough go of it Saturday, and, sometimes that just happens. You're a rookie at your first game. Defensively, obviously, gave up some big plays to Chicago, but remember, the Bears had their starters in. They had Justin Fields and DJ Moore. They had their starters in against pretty much our backup defense. But what's annoying to me, and I don't have anything against the Bears or Justin Fields, but I was like, the media is going to take these stats for Justin Fields. 3 of 3 for 100-something yards and 2 touchdowns. QB1, yeah. It's like, dude, he threw a screen pass. I'm not saying that doesn't count, but like, in this instance, stats can be very misleading. I mean, it was 2 plays where he pretty much dumped it off and the guy took it to the house, and then he gets the credit for it when he literally just dumped it off. Now, kudos to him. I mean, in the regular season, those kinds of touchdowns count too, obviously, but it's like, all you're going to hear about is, Justin Fields, look at his stats. Unbelievable. It's like, yeah, well, it was pretty much 2 screen passes that guys took to the house. But whatever. The defense that was in there, I mean, tackling wasn't great. I think I've seen that the Titans are working out some free agent corners today. I think that's a position that they're probably going to need some more depth. There was a lot of guys out there. No Simmons, no Autry, no Arden Key, no Harold Landry, no Al-Shaair, no Byard. I mean, the whole starting defense was out pretty much. I think the only potential starter that I saw in there was Elijah Molden. He made a couple of nice plays. But yeah, those first couple drives gave up the big plays, and there were certain guys I remember Rashad Weaver making a couple of nice plays. That's a rotational guy. He started a lot last season. They'll need him to really step up this year. But defensively, especially in the second half, there was definitely some poor tackling going on. Definitely left something to be desired, but tough to assess because especially with that many key guys out, you don't know who's going to make the team or not. But I thought that defensively, there are some positions I'm still concerned about depth. On offense, it's the offensive line, but on defense, there are definitely corner, inside linebacker. I'm starting to get a little concerned because it appears that Monty Rice has taken a bunch of steps backwards. I mean, I think that at one point you felt like he was the guy who was going to come in and replace Jayon Brown and David Long when they left. But, he played 1 play Saturday in week 1 of the preseason. I don't know. It appears that in their minds, even this Jack Gibbons has jumped up above him. And I know Al-Shaair is going to be in there too, but I was thinking Monty Rice was going to be a key piece of this defense, and he has apparently taken some significant steps backwards. So I don't know. I'm kind of concerned about that inside linebacker. I'm very excited about the front 4. Obviously, Simmons, Key, Landry, Autry, and then putting in guys like Weaver and that too. I'm very excited about that, but I'm a little concerned about inside linebacker. I'm a little concerned about corner. I'm concerned about depth in those places. Trey Avery, who played a lot last season, I mean, he had an interception in the game. It was a terrible throw by P.J. Walker, but, he had an interception. So looking ahead obviously also in special teams, Shudak made a field goal, but Wolf missed. Let's put it like that. So, Titans have had their kicker woes over the last 5 years. They just can't find a kicker who can consistently make kicks. And after Saturday, I'm still concerned about that. So this weekend, it is the Tennessee Titans in Minnesota playing the Vikings. Somebody let me know where I can watch this game, because, you know, last Saturday was easy because it was the NFL Network. This game is not going to be nationally televised. So somebody let me know where I can access the Titans-Viking games on Saturday at 7. I'll be watching, though. I'll find a way. What I'm looking for, I would like to see, like I said, I would like to see Malik Willis get an entire half. I would like to see Will Levis get an entire half. And I'll be honest with you, at some point in this game or the next one against the Patriots, I would like to see Tannehill at least get a possession. Give him at least one. Like, I'm watching Patrick Mahomes play at least a possession in preseason, and you telling me Ryan Tannehill don't need at least a couple snaps? Like, come on now. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a little more of the starting O-line. I don't want anybody to get hurt, obviously, but let's see a couple more drives of the starting O-line, a little more Tyjae Spears. But, I hope at some point we see a little bit of Treylon Burks and Chig Okonkwo here in the preseason, even if just for a possession, because lest we forget, they are only in their second year now. So, and Kyle Phillips, I'd like to see more of him because he only played in a few games. So there are certain guys that I think over the course of maybe against the Vikings, I think it'd be more likely to see it this weekend than next, to see maybe some of these guys like Burks and Okonkwo dress out and get a little bit of work in. I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see, Willis and Levis both get entire possessions. Defensively, I'd like to see McCreary get in there a little bit. I would like to see, I'd like to see somebody start to stand out at that corner position that's not just Fulton and the usual. We need more depth. So, football's back. That's the main thing. Football's back. It's sloppy, it's ugly, it's preseason, but it's football. And there are things to be encouraged about with this Titans team and what we've seen. There are definitely things to be concerned about, too, after watching that O-line and that secondary. But, all I can say is that it's good to be able to talk about Titans football and it actually be something relevant that's happening right now. Preseason week 2 is on the way against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend. Everybody stay safe. Try and stay cool. And Titans football's back. Football's back. It's the best time of the year. Let me know what you think about Malik, Levis, Spears, O-line, defense, whatever's on your mind after Saturday. I would love to hear from you. Thank you guys for joining me on the Two Tone Talk podcast, where we're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. Everybody enjoy week 2 preseason this weekend, and I'll see you on the other side next Monday. We're doing episodes every week now, and when the regular season gets here, we'll do 2 episodes a week. God bless you. Go sub to Two Tone Talk. Go subscribe. Go follow me on Twitter X. God bless you, everybody. Have a good day. Tighten up. Bye.
I think it's time for a change. This is what I say. Feel free to be